While the Lakers made headlines with Russell Westbrook, the Clippers have now made their own big move. They have reportedly acquired Eric Bledsoe from Memphis in exchange for Patrick Beverley, Rajon Rondo, and Daniel Oturu. So, Shannon, will this trade help or hurt the Clippers?
Skip, I don't really see how it helps them that much. Bledsoe is a very good defender. I think Pat Bev is a very good defender. He can score a little bit more than Pat Bev. But the regular season hasn't been the issue for Eric Bledsoe. It's been the postseason, Skip. In Toronto in 2019, he shot 29% from the floor, 17% from the three. They move on. He goes, and then, in Miami, 2020 in the bubble, Skip, 33% from the floor, 21% from the three. So that seems to have been his problem. The regular season, he plays well. It's come postseason time, is that when he struggles. Now, Milwaukee to the Pelicans to the Grizzlies. Grizzlies like, nah, we got a backcourt. You figure they got Dylan Brooks. It's gonna be interesting what they do when Pat Bev comes on. Skip, you remember when the Clippers got Kawhi and Paul George, and Pat Bev told Steph Curry, the last 5 years are yours. These next 5 years mine. Does that carry over to Memphis, or does the clock stop and starts all over again? I just think the thing is, Skip, for me, I don't really see how this aids the Clippers. The Clippers are big too. Paul George and Kawhi. This is what we don't know, Skip. If and when Kawhi is going to play next season. Is it going to be in March? You believe it's going to be sometime in 2022? Does he take the entire season off? Because if he takes the entirety of the season off, you and I both know they're not winning a championship. They're not going to the... I feel comfortable in saying that. If he comes back, how healthy is he going to come back? Because the thing that KD did, Skip, is that KD took off, and even when they went to the bubble, he said, nah, I'm good. I'm going to get me a couple, 3 more months and come back 100%. And I'm not so sure that they might be lying, because KD, the way KD look, I can't tell anything was ever wrong with KD.
Yep.
So that's what I'm looking at, Skip. It doesn't move the needle. Your guy, playoff Rondo, I told you it was because of my guy, and you had the nerve to talk about he should have been Finals MVP over GOAT James.
Well, he should have been.
You know, stop
that. The key plays. You wouldn't have won it without him.
Yes, Skip, but I'm saying, I don't know. Are they going to keep Rondo in Memphis, Skip? Because it seems to be he wasn't that enthused about being in Atlanta and trying to mentor Trae Young. Is he going to be interested in mentoring?
2 expiring contracts.
Right.
And that's what Memphis views both Rondo and Pat Bev as, expiring contracts.
Yeah, might go ahead and get up off him. But Steve Ballmer, Skip, they said this saved him $25 million.
30
million?
Yeah.
Steve Ballmer's worth $100 billion.
He could buy the whole NBA if he wanted to.
And he can get the whole NFL too.
Yeah,
get the whole NFL
probably
too.
could.
But Skip, here's the thing though. What I'm looking at, Steve Ballmer, if Steve Ballmer's worth $100 billion, people, ladies and gentlemen, Steve Ballmer's worth $100 billion, and he's saving his money, what the hell should you be doing? Unless you're worth $150 billion. So Steve Ballmer told me something. I'm saving my money because he's looking for change under the seat cushion. Because he get up off of those 2 guys. Pat Bev was the longest tenured Clipper. Now that I think, if I'm not mistaken, Skip, that belonged to Zubats. But to make a long story short, I don't think this move moves the needle for the Clippers.
Zubats used to be a Laker.
Man, go ahead.
You miss him right now, don't you?
I would like to have Zoo.
Yeah, you would. Okay, my turn. I tweeted this last night that I was going to sleep on this and try to love it.
Okay.
And I must admit publicly, I cannot love it. On issues of this ilk, I always go on my immediate gut reaction, because it will tell you, deepest down in your psyche, that little voice will say yes or it will say no. And that little voice of warning deep in my psyche is screaming at me still, big N-O. I don't get it. And if you're trying to tell me that Steve Ballmer wanted to save luxury tax money, then we're all in trouble.
Yes.
And the Clippers are in trouble because that means he's just given it up and decided it's nothing but a business venture instead of something that he will throw every last penny at to win a championship.
You think he's been told Kawhi's going to miss the entirety of the season?
You could argue that, because this move smacked of we don't really care, because if you keep Eric Bledsoe for 1 year, he makes so little money that you could get rid of him after next year and clear more cap space so you can make a big new run going into 22 season.
Correct.
Okay, I get that, but I don't want to give up next year because next year to me is, again, the year because the window is closing on this team.
Right.
It's closing on Kawhi. It's closing on Paul George.
Right.
It's closing on Marcus Morris. I still believe this team had one big last run left in it. And I love Pat Bev, and you know how much I love Rondo because of the edge that they brought to the basketball team. I'm talking edge in the locker room, edge in the sideline huddles, edge on the basketball court. It's edge where you come in. They are not the player that Eric Bledsoe is, but they are playmakers.
Right.
That's what they do. What happened in the playoffs? I know Rondo wasn't nearly what I thought he would be.
Right.
But Pat Bev was.
Yeah.
Did he not make plays?
Yeah, he did. He did.
Did he not somehow cause, foreheads to meet and Devin Booker winds up with
a broken nose? It seemed like a broken nose.
Right. So my point is that's a play made. Not that he intentionally did it, but he is so physical and fierce on defense that he just disrupts. He distracts. He bothers, he torments on defense, and it bothers the other team enough that he's getting into it with Chris Paul. It's a distraction that I will miss next year because Eric Bledsoe has made two all defensive teams. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
So on paper, in a vacuum, he's a much better defender than either Pat Bev or Rondo.
Right.
But Pat Bev and Rondo just make plays.
Right.
It's Pat Bev making that play, the play on Christmas Day. I'm going back 2 years ago.
Right.
LeBron's about to go up to shoot a potential game time three, and he gets the ball on the way up, and LeBron fumbles it at the top of the shot and loses it backwards out of bounds, and the game's over.
And then he knocked the ball off somebody's fingers in the playoff this year.
He did. That's Patrick Beverley. That's who he is and what he does.
Well, he'll fit in perfect with Grizzly Skip. They call themselves the Grindhouse. Okay, I know. So he'll be perfect
maybe he
for them.
will. Maybe he'll be good for the kids. Maybe he'll show them how. And Rondo shows everybody how. And I'm going to miss him because I just think he's a guy that you like having in the mix. He fell out of the mix. And it's also possible, and I don't know this for a fact, it's also possible that both Pat Bev and Rondo have such prickly personalities that they were button heads because they're kind of the same guy.
Well, Skip, you remember, hold on, I don't forget what game it was. Rondo passed Kawhi the ball. Kawhi shot it, and Rondo looking at me
over to him like,
what was that? I mean, you shot that.
Yeah.
And so we see, the thing is with superstars, Skip, they're going to make it, the organization is going to make it as compatible as possible for them. And anybody that ruffles those guys' feathers, look at Trev, look at Lou Williams. They got those guys up out of there because...
Out of there. I agree. And Rondo is just difficult.
He's just
difficult
Rondo.
to coach, and he was difficult for Ty Lue. And once he started falling out of the rotation, I'm sure off the floor, there was chaos to be dealt with, right?
Because just Skip, a guy like that, a young guy, if Terrence Mann doesn't play, but you're talking about Rondo, has led the league in assists, that's been to an all-star game, who's gone to 3 finals, he's won 2 of those, and he's DNPing. That's not going to go over very well with him when he says, you traded for me and you told me this is what my role was going to be.
And what did Pat Bev do after the final gun? He took a headlong running
Bush league move on CP3,
CP3 right in the back. Trust me, Jerry West, who oversees this team, the logo, he's going to sit back and say, not on my watch.
Right.
I just don't play that. That's not how we do business.
That was a Bush League move.
It was so Bush League. It might have been the end of Pat Bev, just the way Rondo challenging Kawhi after the miss at the buzzer. That might have been the end of Rondo. So you can argue that they just sort of they blew themselves up in the eyes of the top brass of this team. Maybe Lawrence Frank, maybe Ty Lue, maybe Jerry West. They just said, okay, enough is enough. If we can dismiss and get rid of both of them at once and bring back a very credible player, 2-time all-defensive team player, who did that 1 year in Phoenix, averaged 21.7 a game. You know, that works.
But Skip, the thing is with the Clippers, Rondo is a very strong personality. Pat Bev is a very strong personality. That's not Paul George. That's not Kawhi.
No, I agree.
So if you
That's what I liked about them. But I thought they needed the stronger personalities to complement the superstars' sort of type B personalities. They're not takeover leaders.
But we never saw this from Rondo with the Lakers because LeBron is a dominant
buy that.
personality in and of himself.
I will agree. But LeBron did ingratiate him into the flow to where when it was time for Rondo to make plays and shots against Miami in the bubble, he made big shots.
Yes.